letter this time. And, it's always on my mind. So first good news is, and people may have seen this, I'm probably in the New Yorker, whatever, but nearly every country approved a UN resolution, a biodiversity agreement. And that was agreement to preserve 30% of the land and oceans by 2030. Now, whether or not we can do it is a whole nother question, but at least most of the countries agreed that this was a good idea. And this has been for years, people have been talking about it, that if we could just get humans out of a certain amount of the area, that the rest of the life could stand a better chance. So I'm happy about that. And then the other is that on energy, since I guess the 1960s, nuclear fusion has been a goal to be able, right now our nuclear power is from fission and, taking apart particles. And so it's been eluding us for this many years, since the 60s. And just a few weeks ago, or I read it last week, that a group of scientists have actually performed an experiment that was fusion, where particles came together and actually produced more energy than it took to perform the experiment. So this is a real breakthrough in terms of clean energy, because fusion is not expected to have radioactive waste and do all, the things that the problems with the nuclear energy that we have now. So the article that I read was saying it's very hopeful to take, could be really something that we would be able to get off of fossil fuels, and even, in our going toward clean energy. So, it still the experiment has to be replicated, and then we have to get it into, out in the world. But I think that all the countries will start jumping on that and trying to do it right away, because it's such a breakthrough. So that's the good news. And then, yes, we were Chris and I were going to talk about the solstice, and it's the dark time of the year. It's tomorrow night is the longest night and the shortest day. And it's a very just inward time, and it's cold, and most, animals are hibernating, and I know I feel like hibernating quite a bit. And especially, for us in the northern hemisphere, there's so many festivals of lights, and Hanukkah's today, the festival of lights, and Yule log, and the traditions of the solstice prior to Christianity coming to Northern Europe. Because I think, down in our kind of reptilian brain, we're not really sure, is the light going to come back? And we've been worrying about this, for millennia, that here it is, it's dark, it's cold, it's winter. This only happens once a year. What if it didn't? And so it's a good time to light lights and have festival and cheer ourselves up about it. And, going back to the Greeks, like Persephone, who's the goddess of the seasons and of spring. Apparently she married Hades, the god of the underworld, and so had to go, has to be in the underworld for half of the year. I don't remember the details of the arrangement, but she gets to come up into the top world for the spring and summer and fall, and then has to go back. And so we've been, as a people's, worrying about this for quite a while. And I think also, it also being a worry in a time of darkness, there's also the other side of the darkness, which is that, to love the darkness, to find it as a really healing time and a nurturing time, a fertile time. Denmark and Norway, there's a phrase, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, hygge. It's Hygge, and Google says it's pronounced hygge. So this means comfortable conviviality, wellness, contentment. And the idea, and I think it's also about, appreciating the small things. It's dark outside, it's cold, it hasn't, the day is so short, but inside we've got the fire and sort of the vision of sitting with your comfy slipper socks and a hot cocoa and enjoying just being warm and being, enjoying that moment. And I think that in sesshin, sometimes in a long sesshin, I'll have that sense where it's, it's a dark day, it's dark outside, we're all bundled up and sitting, and it gets quieter and quieter and quieter, and there's this, I've had the experience sometimes of the like that this is our prajna paramita. Here we are in this womb of darkness, and it's not a cold winter darkness. It's more of a rich, fertile, full, soft darkness, a pregnant darkness that's that's our mother, our prajna paramita. And which puts me in the mind of the chant that we do every time of harmony, the harmony of a difference and equality, where it says the spiritual source shines clear in the light. The branching streams flow on in the dark. In the light, there is darkness, but don't take it as darkness. In the dark, there is light, but do not see it as light. Light and dark oppose one another, like the back and front foot in walking. So, here we are in the cusp of this mystery of the solstice, of it's gotten darker, 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 and now the light is coming back and returning to our little corner of the universe. And so, each moment now it's dark and it will be light, and then it's dark again, and we can't have the one without the other. And each moment it's also holding all of the other moments. And then it further says, the harmony of difference and equality says, each of the myriad things has its merit, expressed according to function and place. Phenomena exist, box and lid fit. Principle responds, arrow points meet. It's like, yes, it's all here together. There's winter and then there's spring. There's light and then there's dark. And so we're sitting in the midst of this in the solstice, holding it all and letting it go. And even, while noticing, maybe we don't all feel the hygge sense of warmth and comfort. And there are many, in the world that are without heat and light. So I also, want to pull them into this discussion. And in this great, in this great mystery of not knowing, will the light return, not knowing much of anything. I have, Chris also asked us to bring a koan into this, which was a koan for me in itself of trying to figure out what koan to bring in. So I've decided on case 20 from Wick's Book of Equanimity. Jizo's not knowing is the most intimate. Because, I can relate to this. I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow, hopefully, and go to see my kids for Christmas. And it's freezing here, and there's having the winter storm, and maybe none of the planes will take off, and I might not get there. And I don't know if I'll arrive, and I don't know, I'm hoping that science and technology and human kindness and everyone coming together will turn around climate change, but I really don't know. And I don't know if I'll wake up in the morning. I really don't know. So there's just this sense, and then in our society, knowing is so important. There's such a value put on knowing, and we have to know, we have to be the first one to raise our hand and have the right answer. I mean, who knows whether what we said yesterday or last week or 20 years ago was the right answer or the wrong answer anyway. So here's the case. Attention, Master Jesus said to Hogan, "Where have you come from?" "I pilgrimage aimlessly," said Hogan. What is the purpose of your pilgrimage?" asked Jesus. "I don't know," replied Hogan. "Not knowing is most intimate," remarked Jesus. At that, Hogan experienced great enlightenment. So the commentary goes on to say, I don't know can also be translated as not knowing. Not knowing is most intimate. As soon as we know something, it becomes separate. It becomes a piece of knowledge or understanding that we can manipulate. It says, Jesus was a teacher in China in the golden age of Zen. His student Hogan was the founder of one of the 5 schools of Zen in China. Hogan was the founder of the Hogan School, and one of the characteristics was to find realization not just in yourself, but in all things, in your environment. I think that's so beautiful. I feel like that's what, we practice also so much: awareness of the natural world, awareness of our world around us. And when all things in the universe manifest as absolute, it leads to realization. He said, typical of Hogan's school, an exchange like this. When asked by a young monk, "What is Buddha?" Hogan said, "First, I want to ask you to practice it. And second, I want you to ask you to practice it." And another one was, "First, I want you to practice for 10 years. And second, I want you to practice for 10 more years. And then third, I want you to practice for 10 more years." And then the commentary is, "Whatever ails you, get on the zafu, sit on it, and call me in 30 years. I like that. Because, it takes a lot of pressure off. By honoring this not knowing instead of fighting it, we can discover new possibilities in the midst of our problems. When we think we know all the answers, we feel safe. But life is not safe. We're all going to die. Life is a journey into the unknown. When you hear about how Hogan was enlightened, you can get fixated with not knowing is the way. Not knowing can be just another principle. The way is not in knowing or not knowing. Knowing is false consciousness. Not knowing is indifference. When Jesus said not knowing is most intimate, it covered all possibilities and supports everything everywhere. This not knowing is most intimate contains knowing and not knowing. It contains both and neither altogether. Yeah. And he said, in walking and sitting, just hold to the moment before thoughts arise. Look into it and you'll see not seeing. But don't attach to that. So, yeah. Yeah, in our society where not knowing is really unacceptable, it's really kind of very revolutionary to just be able to be with something without naming it and labeling it and deciding whether we like it or we didn't, and holding on to the sense of curiosity and wondering about life and what the next moment may bring is really more fruitful, I think. In the gap between the in-breath and the out-breath, what is it? So I thought that I would like to close with a meta meditation that I want to bring in the fire element, because for me, I relate to the solstice with the Yule log and with fire and bringing the light back. And I think, you know, fiery compassion can be interesting too, right? So, it'll be a guided one if you care to follow along and you know, sitting up. So we're going to start with, and this is actually a little meditation in itself. We'd start with experiencing our putting our consciousness, experiencing our energy in the hara, in the dantian, as our qigong teacher tells us, and this is 3 fingers below the navel in the center of the body, our power center. And so putting our consciousness there, our awareness, I should say, our awareness there. And then imagine, visualize, pretend, see whatever works for you. Like a little embers, like embers of coals that are just burning nicely. And, you know, fire can be frightening, I think, and there's an aspect of it that's very fierce, but also we can see it in terms of just warmth and comfort, more the hygge sense of it, and putting loving kindness in it, in the sense that we're extending first to ourselves and then out, this sense of comfort, ease, deep caring, and kindness. And so initially, we can just breathe in with our breath down onto those coals. With our inhalation, it can go all the way down to the coals and be like a bellows that just warms those coals and brings them to life and brings a greater fire, a greater light. And then as you experience a sense of that warmth or fire, kindness for ourselves, let that feeling spread out into your entire body, into every cell and bit and bone and bit of blood. Let it all contain that warmth of compassion, kindness for ourselves. We've filled up our whole being with this warmth and compassionate feeling. Could try to notice exactly where our physical body ends and what we consider other begins. And without looking, I mean, when I look at my hand, I'll say, well, this is my hand and this is not my hand, this is a book. But if we don't look and just look with our inner eye, where do we find the edge of where the me ends and the other begins? Now, the more I look at for that, the less I find it. And so not being able to find that, we can just extend this loving kindness, this warmth that has the fire elemental out to our family and friends and pets and relatives, close ones. And it's not to say that that I necessarily have to feel good all the time, or that my circumstances are good. I mean, I think it's a felt sense of some amount of comfort in spite of circumstances. And that's can be very challenging, very difficult. But let's try it. And then as far as you're comfortable extending this warmth of loving kindness out to those in the world that maybe are not sheltered, do not have warmth and comfort, are in prison or in all the parts of the world where we know that sitting with our toes up by the warm fire is not happening right now. And I do this for what works is for me is that I'm holding out a wish that even though somebody may be in prison, they could still feel that sense of hope or warmth or okayness within the midst of it, in spite of circumstances, in spite of circumstances. And maybe sometimes, I know sometimes in very dire circumstances, I've held on to practice and had even a greater sense of comfort in the present moment, or just beingness, not knowingness in the present moment. So sit with that for a minute. If it's too uncomfortable, I would just come back in to the circle of friends and loving animals, kindness around us. And then bringing that in bringing this image, this felt sense back into our physical bodies, and just warm our hearts and bodies the best we can. Allow love in. Allow love in. Allow kindness in. Can blow on the embers of our fire and light up our light. And the last bit is just to let go of all of that. Any concepts or visualization, just let it all dissolve. And just being in our body, in our Zazen body. Just resting in awareness. Resting in what we call ultimate bodhicitta, the pure awareness, knowing we're not separate. our indivisibility, inconceivability. Yeah. So, and you ready to come here again? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so I think at this point we can break into groups. And my question is, like, how does not knowing is most intimate work in your daily life? Does that come up of just not knowing? And also to talk about how is this, how is this season? This is not an easy season for everyone. How are you doing? And anything else you'd like to talk about that came up from all my rambling?
So I'll do groups of 3 to 4, and it looks like maybe a total of 15 minutes. How does that sound, Erika? Or
Yeah.
less?
Sure.
Yeah, is that good? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be back about 6:25. I'll pull people back.